Welcome back to Dream Central Station, where we facilitate holistic personal growth through wisdom, inspiration, spirituality, education, and action so that we can maximize our potential and live our deliberately realized end achieved methodically. Today's episode 7 is entitled Endurance Equals the Benefits of Resistance. Now, I think it's funny sometimes because when I bring up resistance, it's almost like I'm cussing. I'm using foul language because people want to resist resistance of all kinds. It's like you might even be tempted to turn this thing off right now. Like, what? Ain't no benefit to resistance. I'm going to watching a cat play pianos or something like that. Because if we're honest, we encounter resistance as a part of life. It's always present. It's always there. But like a swimmer who can move through the water gracefully, even though they encounter the resistance of an undercurrent or a current itself, even though they're pushing against water to stay up. Yeah, I said water for all my people in the Northeast region of the United States. Just like that skillful swimmer has endurance, and they had to build that through time and practice and skill, you can actually have endurance in life and negotiate the resistance that you encounter each and every day. So hopefully you stay tuned for the ride because we're going to talk about the indicator of your strength, and we're going to talk about how you can actually pump yourself up in the spirit, man, in your soul, as well as your body a little bit. Okay, so we're talking about holistic personal growth right now. Proverbs chapter 24, verse 10, our favorite wise person said, if you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. In that poignant passage, that proverb, he said, if you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. So that's not a judgment. He's not telling you that you're trash because you fainted that one time in adversity. Adversity showed up and you fainted. You passed out like Kevin Hart's grandmom in one of his comedy specials, or you stopped in mid-stride and you walked off of the course. He's not offering that judgment. He's saying that's an indicator of you not having the strength to follow through, the strength to finish, the strength to successfully negotiate whatever course you were on when the adversity showed up. He's telling us that as sure as we are human beings, that adversity will present itself. And if we faint when it does, that's an indicator that we're not strong enough to overcome it. The good news that I bring to you today is you can develop your strength so that when adversity occurs naturally in the life that you live, you can not only withstand or stand against it, but you can exhibit and exude endurance to go through it. So now, resistance as a benefit. All right. We're going to get into that. I think it's funny how in the single digit ADs, even Jesus made an observation. He was talking to his disciples and he was telling them, following me is no easy road. In John 16:33, he said, in the world, you will have tribulation and trials and distress and frustration, but be of good cheer. Take courage, be confident, certain, undaunted. Why? Because I have overcome the world. What am I saying? As he walked on the earth, the Lord Jesus himself encountered resistance. Folks, even if you try to take the path of least resistance, you will still encounter resistance on the way. You know, I'm thinking about Kung Fu Panda, Master Oogway. I know it's funny. I go from quoting Solomon and Jesus to Master Oogway. But he told the Kung Fu Panda, he said, one often finds their destiny on the path they took to avoid it. One often finds their destiny on the path they took to avoid it. What am I saying? We try to take alternate paths and shortcuts and all that to avoid resistance. And what do we encounter in the process? Resistance. My point to you is the better you become at negotiating obstacles, seeing obstacles as opportunities to develop endurance, strength, internal strength that'll propel you and lead to progress, the better off you're going to be. All right. So let's take a brief moment and just think about for a second how we are when we encounter resistance. Do you get flustered, stressed, defensive? Do you get upset? You get angry? You turn into the Incredible Hulk when you have resistance? All right. Or do you take it as par for the course or a naturally occurring thing in life? Almost like I've been expecting you, Mr. Anderson. Like that. Like, do you look at resistance as a bad thing, or do you look at resistance already as a partner that can actually help you towards building the endurance you'll need for the journey that you've embarked upon, for that place that you would like to not only arrive to, but the place you'd like to stay? All right, just thinking about that. Let's define resistance. Resistance, number one, is the ability not to be affected by something, especially adversely. Some of us have a higher resistance to foolishness than others. If you have a strong immune system, you have a higher resistance against catching a cold. Number two, resistance. The impeding, slowing, or stopping effect exerted by one thing on another. The impeding, slowing, or stopping effect exerted by one thing on another. The skydiver jumped safely from the aircraft because of the air resistance provided by her parachute. All right. So we're going to talk about that. And for the purpose of empowerment, we're going to delve into these two definitions from physical observation to spiritual. Because I found that often we're familiar with physical things, but the spiritual things we have a hard time grasping. And that's why I said through wisdom, inspiration, spirituality, education, and action, we're going to maximize our potential and live our dreams. We're going to empower ourselves to do that. All right. So each year around January the 1st, we're well aware that there's something called a New Year's resolution. And go with me on this. So if your resolution has anything to do with fitness, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Gym membership. To me, gym membership. Like, I have to buy a gym membership because I feel like if I put that action towards buying a gym membership, it's going to put me in an atmosphere of people that are working out. It's going to put me in a place where a trainer will be able to hold me accountable. And it's got plenty of equipment to where I can work every muscle in my body, even the small ones that I didn't know I had, right? I can do that as well. So I think about that, right? So let's go on with that. I want you to envision yourself going into the gym as you witness somebody on a squat rack. They have intentionally put weight on bars, attach it to their back, and they're pushing against that weight. They're pushing up against that weight plus gravity to develop their strength. You look around, you see somebody else, they're on a bench and they have weight on the bars again. You see the common thing, they're putting weight on the bar and they're pushing against that bar as they lay on the bench because they want to develop their chest, shoulder, and tricep muscles. They are working to develop their muscle, fitness, strength, endurance, and they're using the weights as resistance toward their benefit. Now, whether they feel like going to the gym or not, they made it. Everybody in the gym that's under the piece of equipment working it out, congratulations. They're in the process of building their strength. So if their bodies are ever put in a situation where they need to be tested, they will be successful. So now I'm going back to our proverb. If you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. Now, I'm not talking about physical fainting when I'm talking about adversity. I'm talking about your soul. I'm talking about the strength of your character, the strength of your spirit. If you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. So how do we develop our internal strength? Well, much like the person who uses the physical weights to push against them while they successfully push against the weight, they use it as a partner in progress. We too can employ life's situations and circumstances to use the adversity that naturally occurs in life to push ourselves, to make ourselves better. In addition to that, we can actually learn the skill, the wisdom in these books, in the book of God's word, in the quotes that successful people have laid down in the annals of history, in their biographies and autobiographies. We can use some of those things to employ in that time that we all know will come. When adversity strikes, we can strike back with a greater force. All right. So I want you to think about that example. And then I want you to think about this passage in the book of James, chapter 1, verses 2-4. It says, brothers and sisters, dreamers, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. Get excited. Why would you get excited when troubles and trials and resistance and challenges come your way. Why would you get excited? Was James high? No, James was not high. Maybe high on the Holy Spirit, but he was not high at all. He said, "For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow." Wow. Mic drop from Brother James, the apostle, right? Follower of Jesus Christ. James said, you need to consider that an opportunity for great joy when troubles of any kind come your way, because you know that when your faith is tried, when it's tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. You have an opportunity now to take an evaluation, to look at the indicator of where you are on the strength versus weakness scale. He went on to say, so let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. So when your faith is tested, it gives you an opportunity to develop your endurance. In other words, you get to work out. And in life, you don't have to buy a membership to life. You got that by virtue of waking up. Congratulations. See, that's free 99. All right. And then when you pay attention to what I'm saying here, the next time resistance shows up, rather than looking at it like a bad thing, you'll probably look at it like a partner in progress so that you can increase your endurance. And what do you do with that endurance? Oh, okay. I'm going to tell you. Let your endurance grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, when you have fully developed your endurance muscles, your patience muscles, patience is another word for endurance in this passage, you will be perfect or mature and complete or whole, needing nothing. Nothing for what? Nothing to continue on that journey, because whatever is pushing against you, you're going to have the endurance to go further against it. So rather than you fainting, it will faint while you keep going. I know that's good. All right. So I want you to think about endurance now. So we talked about the definition of resistance. Let's talk about the definition of endurance. Endurance is the ability to withstand hardship or adversity. If you faint in a day of adversity, your strength is small. But if you have the ability to withstand hardship or adversity, you won't faint when adversity shows up. See what I'm saying? See why I'm smiling? See why I'm getting excited? Especially the ability to sustain a prolonged stressful effort or activity. Now let's talk about it like that swimmer I mentioned in the beginning. We have people who are limited to the shallow end of life. They really don't get much out of life because they haven't developed their ability to go further. Just like a swimmer who has not trained to swim. You may know how to swim, but you don't know how far you can go, and it hasn't been tested. So you stay on a shallow end. And then you might have a person who may not have the technique of swimming. They don't have the skill. So I'm thinking there's two things at play when we're talking about developing endurance. One is the intention. You got to be intentional to develop in the process, to look at every trial and tribulation as an opportunity for growth, right? And then number two, you got to have the skill. Well, where do you get the skill from? Places like this. You get the skill from reading these words of wise people who've lived before us and have done things at a higher level than we are currently doing. You might have mentors in your life that can pour into you and teach you things at critical moments that make a difference in whether or not you succeed or fail. All right. So if you think about yourself and you can name an event where there's a sticking point that continues to occur and you can't get past it, and you keep doing the same thing, the same fainty, pass out, stopping behavior, you can actually push past it as you continue to develop your endurance. All right. So how can we develop? Good question. How can we develop our endurance? All right. Number one, we can expect it. Expect for resistance to show up. Whenever you make any kind of proclamation, like whatever you want to do, you can expect for resistance to appear because it's par for the course. It's a part of life. It's nothing personal. It may appear in the form of a friend, a family member, a hater, somebody who doesn't want you to succeed. It could appear in something in just an event in life that you have no control over. But whatever it is, expect for it to show up. How do you develop your endurance? Expect for resistance to show up. And when it does, engage. Don't retreat. Don't walk away. Don't turn away from it. You've been expecting it. You've anticipated. You've prepared. You've made, you role played. You've made some type of provision. You've decided in your mind that when this thing happens again, I'm going to do something different. You've done your research in expectation, in preparation. And now that the moment has come, like a student who studies diligently for an exam, engage, sit down in that moment or stand up in that moment. Whatever that moment brings to you, when that adversity comes, use the tools that you've placed in your arsenal to mitigate and counter whatever adversity has struck. Okay? All right. So engage when the challenge occurs. Get excited. And then number 3, energize yourself after it's over. All right. I want you to think about a person who, like I said, has an exam coming up. That's the best thing, the best adversity I can come up with right now on the fly. But I'm thinking about a person who is trying to get a professional certification, and they've gone through all their college, they've gone through their master's program, and now they have a big exam at the end. They're expecting it. They anticipate it. They study. They take time out of their schedule. They prepare. Pre means before. Pair means to cut. Before the event, they cut out time and space and energy and attention to get ready for the exam itself. And now that the exam is here, because they expected it, they anticipated, they prepared, they engage. They sit down in that desk or on that computer with their either number 2 pencil and a Scantron. I know that's old school. Or they sit down and they put their name and their code in the computer and they go for it. And they engage and they get all of that. They get in there like they've been studying and preparing, and they're fired up because they're ready to rip this Band-Aid off. They're tired of preparing for this thing. The time has come to engage now. No backing up, no shutting up, no stopping. You can't stop me. I'm going straight through this thing like the juggernaut. All right. The juggernaut. All right. And then last, after they've successfully negotiated that test, exam, what have you, they can now back up off of it knowing they did their best. And they can energize. They can go out and pretty much relax, get their mind off of it, await their score if they didn't get it immediately after. And if they got it immediately after and they successfully negotiated that test, they don't have to look back. They can take a picture with that certificate saying, hey, I did it and I graduated. It's time for me to move forward. It's time for me to do the next thing. All right. And if they didn't successfully negotiate that, they know from having taken that test what they'll need to change in their preparation phase. All right. So when you encounter resistance, right, you expect for it, you engage with it, and then after you're done, you energize yourself. Why? Because like the dream continuum, life has a way of bringing new resistance your way. And when you successfully start employing these principles, you get better and better at them. So this might be a test. It might be a physical fitness training exam that you might take. It might be a trial that you continue to encounter in life. It might be people messing with you at your job. I don't know. Whatever the case may be, consider the benefits of the resistance coming your way. And instead of looking at it as a bad thing, you look at it as a partner in progress. So I'm going to leave you with this and get out your way. But a very good quote that fits this conversation comes from Henry Ford. And I know you know who he is. Ford Motor Company. Come on. Detroit, Michigan, Motown, USA, Hitsville. I know you know. Shout out to my people from MLK, Martin Luther King High School. Hey, when everything seems to be going against you, remember that the airplane takes off against the wind, not with it. And y'all take care. I'll see you again next week.